zomnotho kithina ukubamba iqhaza nje kuphela na. I-political belief yethu ithi no, we must actually be in charge. Yithi abanikazi bezwe. Ngoba kwamanje abantu aba-in charge labantu abafika labakade ngibalanda okunegate okwazi ukuyimeka ukuthi baqala ukufika lapha ngale gate ya-Van basifica sila, kodwa ibona namhlanje abaphethe yonke into. Uyabona-ke kinina enisebancane, uma ningafuni ukudlula lapho ukuthi it is not just the vote that counts. It is not just ukuthi now I can vote. I can be voted for. I can be the president. You can be the president. Kodwa ubanjwe imithetho wayithola isikhona kudala. Wayithola isikhona kudala. Noma ngabe uthi nginyama mina ngifuna i-right yami ukuthi no, umthetho uthi. Inzima-ke lento because slavery, colonialism, and economic suppression and everything, isinomlando omude. Kunezinto abantu sebecabanga ukuthi they are natural. Uyabona nje ukuthi umlungu funeka ahlonishwe. Mokuhlangana nakhumula isigqoko nangasikhumuli. Bathi bathatha sengathi it is a thing uyadalwa uNkulunkulu. And it's not true. Ziningi izinto ezinjalo ngesinye isikhathi uyabona ukuthi hawu amukazukela umlungu neze endleleni wena, because ingcindezelo siyafakwa yaze yangena not just egazini, in the marrow. Uyabona nje sokuzama nje ukuthi mina umthetho wami ngihlakaniphile, umlungu superior, I mean what you call. It's not like that. Sithi-ke lenkululeko esasilwela sifuna siyitholile ngo-1990 yanele na, iyakwenza yini lokho okufanele ukuthi kwenze thina abanikazi bezwe, thina abanikazi bomhlaba, thina esiyiphathi yalokhu. Kufanele kwenziwe njani ukuze yenele? Now thina abantu abamnyama siyi-majority, angithi? Kodwa senziwa singaboni, sizithole sesiyi-minority. Uyabona nje uma ngakutshela since 1994 lo mbutho wabantu owazi ukuthi umbutho wabantu wawina amavoti amaningi kabi, sasiyi-majority. That was the biggest worry yabantu abamhlophe, ikakhulukazi laba abaphethe amabhizinisi, because umthetho uthi uma kukhona umthetho singawuthandi, right, singavota sithi asufuni lo mthetho, sakhe umthetho ozosenelisa sonke. Sikwazi ukwenza lokho uma sibumbene, when we are united. Kodwa uma singekho united, we can't change anything. Bebenzani kabelungu kusukela ngo-1994? Ukusebenza very hard ukunciphisa i-majority ye-ANC or abantu abasupporta umbutho wesizwe. Base beqoqa imali beyibeka ndawonye yokuhambe becela abantu ukuthi akhe iphathi yakho wena, iphathi yakho nawe seceleni, nawe akhe yakho. Noma kwa-ANC uma uxabana nabo, uxabana nabantu abaka-ANC, uthukuthela ukuthi ngiyayishiya mina le-ANC, ngiyaphuma ngishona le ngaphandle, bayakusiza-ke bakunika imali more, bakunika imali, bakunikeze imali wenze yonke ihlobo oyithanda. Uyabona nje uma ubona namhlanje ama-political party akhona eSouth Africa, Angikwazi ukuthi mangaki ngihlezi lapha. Nqwaba ngoZulu. Ngawuthenga ngoZulu abe inqwaba bengaka. Because kufuneka ukuthi sihlukane phakathi. Kube khona amaphathi amaningi, sixabane sodwa, kwenzeke konke ukuze le unity yabantu abamnyama eyayakhiwe ngo-1912 ingakwazi ukusebenza. I-2/3 majority sayigcina ngoMbeki. Babeyiqeda belokhu beyincuza kancane ukuthi kufanele ukuthi i-ANC ibe nayo organization encane nje. I-ANC ayifani namanye ama-organization. Amanye ama-organization ama-political parties. I-ANC umbutho wesizwe. Kodwa baya kureduce lokho to almost like we are the same. Ngoba bafunani sihlale sihlupheka. Akukeneli. Ngiye ngithi-ke mangikhuluma nentsha ngithi hey nisenomsebenzi omkhulu. Okokuqala nje i-unit yomuntu omnyama is more important than anything for us because uma si-united singayishintsha le mthetho ngale kwempi. Singakwazi ukuthi sithi lo mthetho lo asawufuni ngoba unje nanke siwufunayo ozovuna thina njengeningi. Sibaningi kodwa asiboni i-advantage yalokho thina. Instead silwa sodwa siyanciphisana. Ubone qhamuka umuntu kade engekho useyikhulume lokhuzana engenamali engenalutho ilokhuzana ama-elections ayabiza. Umbona unayo yonke inhlobo ayenza uthengela abantu bakhe indwangu yonke into kwasho kwavuna. Unikwa yibo lapho because bafuna sehlukane phakathi. So i-unity yabantu abamnyama is critical. I'm sure senike nangizwa ngiphikisa abantu uma ngihlushwa la kwa-ANC ngithi angisoze ngiyeke i-ANC. And ngeke ngempela ngiyeke because angijoyinelanga i-ANC ngoba inemibala emihle. Ngajoyinela ama-policies e-ANC and lama policies engiyowalwela kuze kwesigcineni. Uma ngisaphila ngiyozama ngoba nayo i-ANC yoniwe ngoba kunento mhlambe seyixoxa ngelinye ilanga baba yeyimpimpi. Ngeke ngikhulume ngayo namhlanje ngifuna ukukhuluma ngayo ngelinye ilanga. Impimpi ziyingozi ongazange uyibone. Ngoba impimpi umuntu ohlala naye othengiwe oholayo ebusuku wena uboni. Uthiwe wena enza lokhu nalokhu. Kwahamba-ke impimpi zasala sezikubahozi. Uyabona namhlanje uma uthi kuthiwa hey bekuhlangene u-African National Congress National Executive Committee uthi ubeka udlebe kuma sekuphunywa lapho ukuthi kazi ingqomo zineyithathiwe inhloko akholwe. Since Nazareth ngeke nje ungitshela ukuthi i-ANC National Executive Committee against statement usizwayo ukuthi nakho hayi nakho ke kulokwathi cwaka kwenzeka izinto ngapha kuze ne-ANC sithuka ngokwayo kodwa ke into ezincane lezo zoyixoxa ngelinye ilanga singena imbobo. So ngithi nje bengifuna ukuthi nazi ukuthi leli khehla lelenize kulona namhlanje libongayo. Ikhehla leli elihlalele la inhliziyo yalibhlungu ukuthi nje liyazi ukuthi thina abantu abamnyama siboni. Yabona sifana nabantu abahambayo impumalanga engala kodwa thina sishona nje. Asazi ukuthi siyotshenwa ubani ukuthi ngapha bo uphendukani. Ngithi ke mangibona intsha ngithi hey intsha madoda mayiningi kangaka uyabona ima nje singake silungisa into ezimbalwa. Uyabona nje noma ngabe uya kuma trade unions bawahlukanisa abasebenzi kufanele ngabe bahlangana ngoba ikhole yabasebenzi nenkinga abasebenzi yinye kodwa yabahlukanisa ngapha. Ngabona ngelanga sathi sinengiholo omkhulu kabi lapho kuvavi bahamba ngelanga nayo shaya into yakhe ngala abanye bashaya into yabo ngala bahlalela ukusihlukanisa ngaso sonke isikhathi. Thina ntsha we need to look beyond this, sikwazi ukuthi yithi esinesikwenetu sokubuyisa inkululeko igcwale ithizwe, and ingagcwala ngeke ingagcwala. Kodwa enye into engiye ngiyihlabeke manje ukuthi amakhosi, abefundisi, ifundiswa kuzizinhlobo ngenhlobo ezinhlanu, kunento abayiyeka. Kade ngiwakhumbuza amakhosi abefundisa abantu sengike ngakhuluma nabo ukuthi i-ANC le yenziwe ngamabomu ukuthi ibonakale sengathi isukile ebantwini. I-ANC yakhiwa amakhosi nabefundisi ney'fundiswa. Kwase kuba khona iprocess eyafika lapho kubhenwa khona i-ANC, yonke inhlobo yento. Uma sekufika esigabeni sokuthi sekuya negotiate manje, nansi i-ANC siyo negotiate, amakhosi asehlela ayabukela, abefundisi bahleli bayabukela, ney'fundiswa abasho ukuthi wo, ngoba sekufika isikhathi sokunegotiate manje, yini le esayakhela i-ANC, sasifuna ukuthi kwenzeke. Ngoba phela i-agenda ye-ANC iyayiclear. Umhlaba yenye agenda enkulu. Umhlaba. Awasekho amakhosi, asekho abefundisi, asekho iy'fundiswa. Sekuhamba i-ANC esiyenziwa yabhenwa yazijika yaze yaba enye into. Uma sesifika lapha leyo issue yomhlaba seyisala ngemuva. Sekuthiwa hayi siyoqaqwa i-constitution. Sengithuleka ngisadlula lapho. Ngeke ngisadlulela ngoba ngifuna ukunilibasa nisakude bantu. Mina mangikhulumela ipolitiki ngokushona la. Angibonge nje ngenzela ukubonga kodadewethu nabafowethu ukuthi ngithathe isinqumo neza ngoba ngithe noza ngelinye ilanga ngojabula. Mhlawumbe ngalelo langa siyoba nesikhathi esanele. Kodwa ke asenele isikhathi. Ngifuna nje nazi ukuthi nina njengentsha nine challenge to find not yet. Ifuna bani, ifuna nini. Jabula kabi uzokuthiwa khona abafundela umthetho ngoba I'm very critical of the law. Ekuzokuthiwa i-Roman Dutch law. Iphethe imithetho esasiyishaya. Kwakungekho igebengu ngesikhathi sethu. Abelungu bengakafiki. Kwakungekho bantu badlwengulayo. Kwakungekho bantu ababulala abantu emaceleni. Kwakune-discipline ezweni kumuntu omnyama. Nenhlonipho konke. Manje kodwa kangiyekele ngini. Baba ngibonge sengithatha isikhathi senu esikhulu.
Mongameli.
Yebo, baba ngiyabonga. Ngiyabonga bandlala kwethu.
Mongameli.
Yebo.
Angazi ke Mongameli ngibona isikhathi sethu ungathi sesiyashaya kancane mhlawumbe masingathatha 10 minutes just taking 2 or 3 questions and then mase sinikeza uMongameli to respond. Bese sicela ukuthi sivale. We are on Space here on Twitter and we've got listeners. I'll see if we can just take one of them who is asking for a microphone, President, maybe to just say something and then ask the President to respond. We've got a few followers on Twitter, very influential comrades that we have here. Comrades, thank you for joining us on Twitter. We are live with President Zuma. I'm just going to take from the house, from the floor, 2 questions, and then I'll be observing if there's any tweets that is asking for a mic, and then we'll allocate the mic on the Twitter, on the spaces. Any question on the house? Zimewendawo, and there's also virus on the other side. Go ahead.
My question is, City, you were still under administration. Yeah, you were still the president of the country. Under your administration, we had Ebola, and Azali it could have easily been a pandemic, but it was not. And then suddenly we have coronavirus, which could have been avoided, but again, yavele nje yafika yamosha izinto eziningi. So mina engifuna ukwazi ukuthi what is it that you did to stop Ebola in South Africa, and mhlambe singasebenzisa le whatever that you did in future to avoid other pandemics, because corona, according to me, in my own opinion, bekuyinto yangamabomu ukuthi ifike la eMzansi Africa. So ngifuna ukwazi ukuthi what is it that you did ngesikhathi uzwa kuthiwa okay, there's a deadly virus, a deadly disease, Ebola, but thina la eMzansi we did not even see it. Sasizwa nje endabeni ukuthi okay, there's a virus eyenzakalayo so.
Thank you, Zime. President, I don't know whether I should take the second question or you'd respond first.
Okay.
Thank you, President. Vos,
I'm going to.
just pick a voice so that we can get
I'm
you.
going to. Bongale thuba lokuthi ukusho wami ulula ke ukuthi i-social media is the strongest weapon ecekela yonke into phasi njengoba besibona mongameli igama lakho belicilelwa phasi enkundleni zokuxhumana nanoma sibukele i-TV bebangakuvezi la mina ngifisa ukwazi ukuthi as i-leader ye-ANC i-social media nina beniyicontrola kanjani ngoba you have power over i-South Africa, but bese kubonakala ngathi i-social media iyang-overpower. So ngifisa ukwazi ukuthi nina as ukhongolose beni-circulate kanjani the right information ukuthi ifike endlebeni ezi-right so that izofika nasemphakathini right, so that into eyenzakala ethini lento esiyizwayo ebantwini bayikhuluma silazi iqiniso ngoba manje njengamaye la sikhona kwezinye indawo iqiniso asilazi, sizwa lokhuya sizwa nalokhuya. So ngifisa ukwazi ukuthi yini enihluleka ukuyenza ukuthi izindaba ezivelayo kube yezenu ezikhongolose kungaveli izindaba nje noma ngale.
Thank you, Vos. Mongameli. I'm glad I'm not in your seat, President.
Well, firstly, Ebola. What we did once we heard, and then Ebola was happening in the continent of Africa. And certainly it was very clear to us that if we did not act, we would not be safe in Africa. So we acted firstly, interacted with the countries that had Ebola and had our own scientists going there to participate with them in order to stop it from growing. We also prepared ourselves here. We were ready in every way, but we were also very vigilant to the people who were coming into the country so that we could therefore help protect our citizens. We also coordinated with them. We're working together to ensure, as South Africa in the continent, we played a very critical part. At that time, the Minister of Finance was, who remembers?
Jamnandas.
No, not Jamnandas. Called Dr. Makula, a former talkative minister.
Finance or health?
Huh? Health.
Of health.
It was Mutsalid. It was Mutsalid. And he was very vocal and he was very active. And I think we succeeded to address the issue. I don't want to talk about when I was no longer there. When, for an example, sitting here where I'm sitting, also vulnerable, so to speak. When I heard that Corona was attacking China, my understanding was that among other countries, we had very active interaction between the Chinese. And if I were to make a suggestion, I would have said, let us begin to screen what comes from China. Would be very clear that whatever the relations we have, in order to protect our citizens, we would have not allowed planes to come in when we hear that they've been there. We would have started dealing with the matter. But I don't want to to talk much about that. But that was as a citizen, my thinking. Because if you remember, by the time once we were aware of what was happening, by the time we said Corona is in the country, people have flown in. They were in Durban, they were in Cape Town. It was already here. I think being alert would have done something. And then I'm sure we did maybe do something. I should not say we did not do anything, but that's what I would have done. With regard to social media and how we handle it, comes back to the point I've been making of oppression and those who are powerful than others. The media is an instrument of those who have everything to do whatever they want. Through media, they can destroy you. Through media, they can build you to become a big person because they've got the means to do so. That's where it ends. You can't do it anywhere else. Perhaps when the social media was beginning, people could address it in many ways. I think what will have happened is that whoever has been trying to bring anything progressive, let alone revolutionary progressive, is suppressed. Those who are powerful want their voice to be heard. They wanted to influence the world, and that's what they've done. You'll recall that at a given time, given the force and the capacity of the very bad propaganda, there was an attempt to establish the alternative. And one of them was a newspaper called, what was it called? Who remembers?
The New Age. The New Age.
The New Age. The New Age, as the newspaper, was reporting differently. In other words, it was reporting opposite to the main, what they call the mainstream media. Did not end there. A channel was established. What was it called?
ANN7.
ANN7, which reported differently. Where they are today, dead, killed by the powerful.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing. Because the media is under those who control everything. That's a problem. Where did these things I'm talking about came from? It was partly from some ANC who were trying to counter the propaganda, because the major propaganda has been anti-ANC propaganda. And because there were attempts to do so, you ended up with the people who established that being so criticized that they were chased out of the country in order to remove the opposing views in terms of how you report in South Africa. So it is part of oppression. It is part of the powerful being above everything else. That's what it is. Who have the money? Who owns the media in South Africa? And you get there, you realize it is owned by those who have all the money. What can you do if you don't have the money? You will remain an underdog forever. That's what it is.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. President. Can I take two last questions, because I'm trying to close in 5. So you go Mfundisi and then Somlomo, you'll be the last. I don't think we're going to be able to take any further questions.
Okay. Mr. President, thank you for the opportunity. Greetings once more. Mr. President, in your closing statement, thank you, by the way, for the advices, the lessons you gave us. I really appreciate. In your closing remarks, you mentioned the issue of unity, that we need to unite as Black people. I'm grateful that you mentioned that. This is the second day. Yesterday, we had a mayoral prayer in Governbeck municipality, and Bishop Mahlangwan was ministering there. He also mentioned the issue of unity as Africans, as Black people. Can you give us the advice from your position? Looking at what is happening now in the country, the influence that the other race has done on us as Africans, as Black people, what is it that is a most important thing that we can do as Africans to unite? That the greatest advice that you can give to us to bring back unity, because we do advocate for unity. We do talk about let's unite. But what is it that we can really do as Africans to understand the weight unity? Let's unite. Thank you.
Thank you for this. Somlomo.
Mongamel, thank you for the opportunity and the lecture that you've just given us for free. We paid nothing, and we are very grateful. My question would be,
Please also talk to us.
my question would be, I'm a unionist, Mr. President, but I want to ask a question that would take you back to 2008. I suppose it was the time in which you were elected as the president. But there were challenges by that time. There was a time when we had a recession. Was it a recession in the land? And then you happened to manage to live throughout or against those odds. But my question would be for the workers. I assume that the sources of government, of revenue of government, would be taxes and the SOEs, and then I would finally assume that the loans that you borrow from other countries. But to repay those loans, you need to use the taxes from the workers. And seemingly all the parastatals or the SOEs seem to be failing. Even when they are failing and they need bail to be bailed out, you still use the taxpayers' money to do that. My question is, in times like this, when we have a pandemic and we are to negotiate on behalf of the workers, companies would then give us a reply or a response that says the economic conditions do not allow us or permit us to give you any increases. Do you sometimes as a former head of state consider to say, in such critical conditions, let us then review the tax bracket and say the workers are not receiving any increases. Two, they're also facing the same challenge of the pandemic. Can we then say they will be tax-free for this period? Or can we then reduce an amount of tax in which they're supposed to pay? And my other question, Mr. President, would be, if there is a clause in the Constitution that says we can change anything if we are the majority, before they chop us out to because all political parliaments still represent the people of the land, South African people, who might still have one common goal to say, we want this and we do not want this, especially our land, as you spoke of the minerals and the resources there too. As a unionist, we represent the workers who are actually working there. How can we then unite and say, this is what we want and this is what we do not want? Thank you, Mr. President.
Asking the issues, the economic issues, to a person who has been a president before, who had used it in them. If I say much, people might say, what do you expect from this fellow? I think it's a question of understanding what are the interests of the country in the first instance. I think the problem is that generally when people are in charge, are in the government, they tend to consider the interests of those who have more than those who have not. It's a tendency that is always there. What happened, for an example, when I became the president, the economic issues were hot. It was not easy. If you remember, we introduced a lot of economic activity. I think it was at the time when in fact the world was in trouble, we created opportunities by creating infrastructure drive in the country. And that infrastructure drive helped us to be able to take the blows from the economy lighter than they would have been, because we concentrated in creating jobs, in creating opportunities, and that was able to address the challenges that we faced at the time. I think it was the first time we had the massive activities in terms of infrastructure, leading up to when we added the World Cup that was coming. We had to be active in that way. That then tells you the only solution is that you should be able to think, how do you grow the economy? Even under those conditions, you cannot fail. Going with that, we were using the SOEs. You cannot, when you are faced with the challenge, reduce the SOEs or sell them, because you are removing what you could call belong to the state, and therefore on behalf of the state belongs to the people. I mean, on behalf of the people belongs to the state. You have got it to in fact increase the SOEs. They are a solution insofar as my views are concerned. But of course, the economists have got too many views. Unfortunately, they don't have one view that if you follow this one, you succeed. That's why economists have got theories and theories and theories. But there are simple issues to move forward. Take a country, for an example, like China, which had slums in the recent past, I mean, before it changed its gear. How it has used the SOEs to develop that country to be a giant of economic country today, because they decided what to do, how to grow the economy. You can't, when you are saying we're in trouble and shrink the economy, sell the SOEs to those who have businesses already, who are not looking at only the interests of the people, who are looking at their own interests. So it's a different matter. It's of course a debatable issue. You know, the economists love debating issues generally, instead of saying this is what we would be doing. Equally, and I think the issue of the unions getting into trouble, the workers will always, is a historic fact. There is no employer who will want to use more of his money to pay the workers in order to help the workers. We'd always want the workers to put more energy to his economy to grow. And the issue of looking at the workers has always been there. The exploitation is something that is always there. So it's a matter. I mean, part of the reason that you had the two ideologies in the world, it is in fact centered around that issue. How do you look after the the citizens of a country, ordinary people, and the citizens of the country who are business? And in the majority of cases, in the other view of the economy, people look after the interests of the business generally, whether the business is doing well or not. Even when people say the economy is not doing very well, they're not looking at the salary. They're looking at the profits more than anything. So the outlook in the world is distorted wrongly against the people, against the ordinary majority generally. So that's a problem. That's why, therefore, the issue that we raised of Workers Unite came in, that we have got to unite in order to deal with this. Because it's like what you economy always. I mean, people, for an example, will tell you what determines the value of a commodity is the law of supply and demand, as a fake thing. It can't be. If that was the case, there would be more production because the demand is more. So that's just economic knowledge. People wanting to do the kind of good language to say. It sounds very nice. Law of supply and demand. But it's not true. We, for an example, many of us need oranges. But when the farmers have got too much oranges, they can't say reduce the price because there are more oranges, or the demand is more. Not at all. They will actually take trucks and trucks and go and dip them away in order to keep the demand, or rather the supply at a given time. So the economy is a theoretical kind of thing there. Let me leave that one. I think that's what I can say. With regard to unity of the people, this is the point I was making earlier, that those who don't like people who are like us, majority, poor, etc., they know that if we unite, we have got more power to determine the pace and the direction of whatever in the country. And because our thinking is the same, we come from the poor. We want everybody to have something. We want all to lead. The other side, ideologically, that is not the case. The other side wants to have accumulate everything, and we have very little. And therefore, if we are a majority, you should not be allowed to come together. You are more dangerous once you come together, because you can use your vote to change things. And that's why you need to be interfered with. You must be made to fight. We must put money aside to pay those who are agreed to move away from others, so that we will remain small little splinters all over forever. It is an unfortunate thing that this simple fact, we don't look at it. You find the very poor people are the ones who are fighting more. I can give you a glaring example. We have elected people, send them to parliament to go and represent us. If you listen to parliament seriously, is there any debate that talks about us really? How we, the poor, the majority, must be helped? Nothing. The debate is something else. We are being deviated from what we need to do. And unfortunately, this is what I was saying earlier, that unfortunately, we all just sit. We all just sit. Instead, we are being made to fight among ourselves. And there are people who are bought to perpetuate that, so that there is no unity. You can talk about it, but it will never happen. When we went for the last elections, I was campaigning. I actually addressed pastors quite a lot on the issue of black unity. It's critical for our future and the future of this country. But people don't listen. And they are going to tell that man is mad. That man is corrupt.
Can this
That's
go
why
on
he's saying all of
media,
this.
please?
Huh?
Can this advice be on media, please?
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
President. We have to release you.
Thank you.
And we thank you very much. And we also have to get these youngsters on the road back home. But I want to say thank you very much, Mr. President, and to our Twitter comrades. I see who's comrade, the very biggest supporter, she's also there. Got arrested because she supports Mamalala very hard. But thank you very much, Mr. President, for sharing your time with us and for sharing the knowledge. We couldn't finish everything today. There's still a lot and wealth of knowledge we would like to milk from the president. We do promise that we will set up another one and we will come and we'll give it a bit more time, because it is important that as the young people of this country, we find the truth and we live by the truth, and our eyes shall be opened. And I thank you very much. For also being here and supporting us. Guys, I'm my favorite. Thank you. So we are done. Thank you very much.
Group photos.
We can maybe take a group photo. Umongameli needs to go, and we also need to go.
No, we can take it in groups here, so that we make it quicker.
Bengicela ukubonga, ngibonga abafundisi, ngibonge COMEEWU, ngibonge abantwana, ngibonge wonke umuntu, ngikubonge nqamana usinikeza isikhathi. Kade si chop and change i-date, we were chopping and changing all the time. Kungahlanganeki kahle, kodwa kuze kwaba i-success namhlanje. Sixolise ukuthi simhlanganise. I hope I'm not live. I hope you all. Thank you. Ngibonge ukuthi namhlanje ukuhlangana kwethu is the beginning of more other meetings and gatherings that we are going to have, and you have the foundation's full support and the president une support, and siyabonga ukuthi sixhumane ngale ndlela. Akufanele ngabe ngiyakhuluma uma sekukhuluma ubaba, but I'm talking because lento eniyenzile nokuthi nicabanga ukuthi i-culminate ekuthenini uNxamalala agcine ekhulumile nabantwana. This is an investment of a lifetime. And we do know the opportunity that is very rare. I mean, we grew up, we never had an opportunity to sit enyaweni zabaholi bethu bezwe. So siyabonga kakhulu Nxamalala. Isikhathi asisenaso, une pressure ubaba, but I should say that ngeke ngikwazi ukuthi ngingakusho lokho. Ngicela sisheshise by 6 o'clock it's a cut off time. Ngiyaxolisa.
Thank you. And to our Twitter comrades, thank you for joining our space. I have to call it off. And thank you very much. Salute. Thank you.
Viva COMEEWU, viva! Viva!